Welcome to Hospitality on the Rise, the podcast about the people shaping the hospitality industry and their journeys. I'm your host, Alice Cheng, founder and CEO of Culinary Agents, hospitality's go-to hiring platform. And I'm here to give you your dose of virtual mentorship. Here, we'll be sharing the stories, lessons learned, and advice from hospitality leaders who've carved out their own path to success. After all, this industry is where many get their start and go on to do incredible things. Whether you're a pro, starting out, or just love the hustle, this podcast highlights what makes hospitality extraordinary: the people. I'm so excited to have Amanda Signorelli with us today. Amanda is the Chief Executive Officer and co-owner of Golden Steer, which is 2022 Infatuation, the 25 best restaurants in Las Vegas, 2022 USA Today Top 100 U.S. restaurants in 2022 based on 13 million open table reviews. I can kind of add a couple more, but I wanted to throw a couple of them in there. And a new location opening up this fall to New York City, coming to New York City. So amongst that, she's a trustee member for Vegas Chamber, largest business support organization in Nevada, communications committee member of the International Women's Forum, and an advisory board member of Digital Restaurant Association. She's also had a decorated career inside and outside of the industry. So we're particularly interested in hearing Amanda's career changing. I don't even want to call it career changing because it sounds like it's like a coming back to the industry type of situation. But Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be involved with Culinary Agents because I love this platform.
And we're going to give you that love right back because we are very, very excited to continue to support your growth. But tell us how you got started in hospitality.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely stumbled into it. I did not have a background in hospitality. My father had bought the Golden Steer in 2001. I had been in Chicago working in technology, venture capital, consulting, etc. And then I got a call in 2018 from my father that said, "Hey, I need some help with the restaurant. Do you want to step in?" And I'm like, "I can't even cook. What are you talking about?" And so it was a very bold decision to jump in. I was fortunate at the time that my husband and now business partner as well had gone to culinary school. So I was like, how about we do this as an adventure? Like, we'll jump in, we'll do it for a year. And here we are 6 years later, and things are rocking and rolling.
Wow, wow. And how was that like? I mean, you went off and did other things for quite some time. So talk me through a little bit about kind of your kind of career path.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I was very fortunate to start my career off in consulting, which was like a great way to get a mini MBA, learning how to use Excel, learning how to read a P&L, all of the things that are the basics. It was very glamorous, but the reality is you tell a lot of people what to do and you don't do a lot of that work yourself. And I realized there was a gap there. So I jumped in to join a tech company and a small startup, which was called Tech Week, which I eventually ran as CEO for about 3.5 years, left and then started another company in the e-commerce space before I got the call. So I got a chance to really get an awesome opportunity to interface with several different types of industries and people and skill sets and constantly learn from them.
And I have to ask, like tech people versus hospitality people. Come on, I'm very glad because I kind of like, have a foot in both worlds, but they're very different. And obviously the hospitality industry is the best industry, in the universe. But talk to me a little bit about transitioning, right?
Yeah.
From that life to coming into this daily life. Like what were some of the did you have any like eye-opening moments or like, wow, this is really different or this is hard or why do people do things this way?
Yeah, I had so many. I was so blessed by a team that was extremely patient with me, which I am so, so, so grateful for. And I mean, first and foremost, hospitality is always way more fun and exciting. The other element that you run into is like there's just so much more humanness, right? You spend all your time, effort, energy, whether it's technology or consulting or finance, in this kind of view of like, how do we systematize? How do we turn this into a process? How do we make it really fast and efficient? And you tend to then rip out the human element and you discount that. It's something that it's like, let's produce a widget over and over again. But the reality is, what makes something super special is that it is tailored, it is human, it is imperfect, and it is specific to that person in front of you. And that's what hospitality is great at, is remembering we're human and there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm totally gonna use that with my team because sometimes my co-founders are like, "We have a framework, we have a process. Why are you doing it?" I'm like, "But it's different to this person or business, like, let's add a little extra over here because this is what they care about. And that's, that's we're the tech company that adds that hospitality approach to it, and we love it. But we always have a fun time when they're like, really? We have okay, then just plug your extra thing into our existing framework and let's run with that. I'm like, great, perfect. That's hospitality and tech. Um, I love it. So you know, you kind of you stepped in right before COVID. Right. So, you're learning this new industry, if you will, this new business, and you're not on the strip. You're off the strip in Vegas. Am I correct? I've never
We're
been
right
there before
yeah,
on my
we're right
bucket
in
list.
between Fontainebleau and Resort World. So we're still like consider ourselves a strip property, but we're not in a casino, which makes us one of the only independent operators that is like right there and in it.
Oh, let's sidebar. How is that like? Like,
Yeah.
do you have what is marketing like with that, right? Because do you have the same level of foot traffic? Or I mean, I'm ignorant. I haven't spent that much time in Vegas. I spent time inside hotels doing trade shows in the past, but not enough time playing, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we find ourselves like our team is predominantly strip based, right? So we understand that most of our team members are coming from MGM or the Wynn or Caesars or Resort World. They've worked at those properties. And so we know that's what our team looks like in terms of our customers. They're coming off the strip. But the downside is we don't get the built in foot traffic. We're not inside Caesar's Palace. We're still a destination for people to like get in a car and get in a cab. And most people, they like to say they show up and they look and they're like, there's a strip mall. Am I at the right place? Really? And then they get inside are like, wow, this is magical. But there's definitely like this duality and initial startle. That's definitely a juxtaposition. And for us as well, just as a business, we're kind of held and regulated as if we were in a casino, which we really felt during
Oh,
COVID, which was a big surprise of having like the gaming commission show up with a tape measure and they're like, hey, we're here to measure that all of your booths are 6 feet apart. And you're like, oh, okay. So we're going to get regulated as if we are on the strip, but we don't get all the folks that are actually gaming.
oh. So you don't get all the benefits, but you definitely get all the regulations.
A
I
little
see
bit.
how that works. Yeah, and you have to get creative to also, I mean, with that, right? Because not everyone has foot traffic. I mean, in certain cities, there are definitely more highly foot traffic. I mean, the new location you're going to have here in Manhattan definitely has foot traffic. So I feel like you're going to have some different, potentially pleasantly surprising challenges on the other front. But as far as like marketing, promoting, finding out ways to get people to come, what were some of the things that since you took over, you were like, "Let's try these things," and it worked? Like, what did you A/B test that was like, "This is gonna work," or "This is not gonna work?"
Yeah, absolutely. The first year we got involved, frankly, we were so afraid to touch anything because the restaurant was doing well, but it also wasn't necessarily on this great growth trajectory. And so we're like, well, we don't want to disrupt what's great. We still want to test some things. And we were just really timid. And then eventually we got to the point where COVID hit and it was like, well, anything we try is good because nothing is going on and we have to really run towards the storm. And once we ran towards the storm, we're like, okay, let's just start testing. Let's just experiment, see what happens. And so for us, what that really meant was social media. And so we had always had a legacy of storytelling that was really endemic to the brand, which was great. The question was how it manifested itself because we weren't necessarily very good at articulating it or putting it out there or visually representing it. It just wasn't our strong suit. And then all of a sudden, when nobody was coming in to just experience the story, we were like, okay, now we have to tell it. Like, we have to go out and do this. And so we started originally in 2019 with only 5,000 followers on Instagram, and that was our only channel. Fast forward to
Wow.
today, and we've got multiple channels and about 1.5 million followers and 300 million
Wow.
impressions of hashtag Golden Steer on TikTok. So it's a very, very different beast. And that really propelled and ran in parallel with the growth that we saw in the business that became a whole new engine for us to experiment with, to try and really do so both in terms of like how do we do something online, but then also bring it into the restaurant? How do we connect those two? How do we have code words? How do we feature specific dishes? How do we do something fun and exciting? And so it gave us an opportunity and a sphere to just constantly iterate in.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, what was that an impetus of like, "Let's expand," or did you come in already thinking like, "Let's take this brand and bring it national or to different cities, etcetera?"
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first phase for us was when COVID hit March 17th. It was our 1 year mark of being involved in the business. So we had only just gotten to the point where we were like, we think we kind of know what's happening. And then it was, all right, now we definitely don't know what's happening. Where are we going to go? And we were very concerned about Vegas in particular, how long it was going to take us to come back from COVID because everybody has to fly there. We knew it was a big travel destination. We had seen all the data that was coming out from the Las Vegas Convention Center, who does a good job of showing you this is where people are coming in, and here's how it's correlated with flights and people driving. We're like, well, that's going to be a problem. So then it was, how are we going to make money outside of the four walls of the business to also make sure we can make payroll to cover our team that's here? And so we started saying, let's lean into it from a branding standpoint and start shipping our product. So we closed March 17th. We shipped out our first shipment of steaks. I think it was like May 18th. So not too long in between those. And literally just started getting to work shipping product out. But the moment we were shipping product out, it was okay, well, now we have to digitally reach these people. We have to figure out how to do this. And so we ended up stumbling into it of just that forced us to experiment with these channels, which hadn't been a top priority for us. And that took off. Whereas when we did to go or any of these pickup orders, that failed. And so we're like, okay, well, press your winners. That's working. Let's keep exploring. Let's keep experimenting and then just keep doing that. And then quickly it ended up becoming its own strategy. We were able to back into it. And now we have two lines of business. We have two teams. We're shipping out thousands of boxes every single month. And we've got our restaurant team who's benefited from the fact that because we had to figure out how to storytell and reach these people outside of the four walls, the restaurant itself has exploded.
That's incredible. I'm taking a pause here because yes, we know that COVID was absolutely terrible. Yes, we know that there's after ripple effects that are still being felt to this day, 5+ years after the initial shutdowns. But this is an example of, you're making lemonade with lemons. It's the first time I ever used that. That's kind of funny. And it ended up being an opportunity, right? And for a lot of businesses, we saw that, not immediately, but everyone kind of mobilized and figured out like, how are we going to survive? Like, there's not enough information. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but you can't just sit around and wait, right? And how do we take advantage of this opportunity to experiment, to do something that we said like we got nothing to lose, and that's a great example and story of how you discovered basically a whole other business line, and then that you know you know built a network and allowed you to tell your story to enable you potentially to grow into an international brand, right?
Yeah.
And so what was it like deciding, where to expand to? Was it like New York always, the moment of like we need a location in New York? That's definitely where we want to expand to. And
Yeah, well, definitely selfishly, I've always wanted to live here. So has my husband. So we were always like, at some point in our life, we want to be in New York. But the first thing we did when we started thinking about expansion is we were like, A, is this the right time? B, does this match the legacy of the brand? And C, where are our customers? And so the first part of is this the right time really came from seeing what happened after COVID with the launch both of F1 coming to town, Super Bowl coming to Vegas, and the Sphere opening. And all of a sudden, it was like Vegas was on everybody's brain in a way that we had never seen before. And we're like, wow, okay, Vegas is here. It's a part of everyday conversation. And even just traveling and observing and people asking, like, oh, have you been to the Sphere? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? Did you go there? I'm like, okay, this is different. You could feel it in the air and you could see it in the numbers, even what we were seeing in Vegas and our growth rates just as a local economy, and also in the composition of the types of people that were coming and the concepts that were here. Because Vegas has always been about importing really exciting and sexy things to town. We've never done the reverse. And we're the first ones to really say, like, why don't we do that? And it's been really exciting. And so we were like, all right, we think it's the right time. The question is what matches the legacy next. And when we think about the brand, a lot of it's tied up with these entertainers or these really progressive leaders or these people who have fought really hard to be an entrepreneur in whatever their space is, even if it's something just as basic of like, how are we going to tax poker earnings? Like we have a booth in honor of Mr. Baxter because he was one of the people that brought that to the Supreme Court and changed how it was taxed, which is crazy and amazing and inspirational in its own regard. And so we're like, all right, where do you find that entrepreneurship, that entertainment factor, that kind of like connection with all the people who have come into our doors? And we put together that list and then compared it with our customer data on, okay, how are people engaged on Instagram, TikTok? What cities are they on? Where are they coming from? Website? What's their amount of time that they're spending on the website? So not only who's coming, but how long are they spending it there for that duration and level of interest? You put all of that together and very quickly, New York was really the only answer.
yeah, I second that. I'm
Absolutely.
biased. I'm born and raised here, but. And where were you getting this customer data from? Like, did you have systems in place already when you took over, or were you like, putting your tech hat coming in saying, "No, we need to, like, implement other things," and
Yeah, absolutely. The first round was we have to implement technology. There was nothing when we got there. The example that I always give folks is when we first showed up into the restaurant, I remember walking in and realizing that all of the checks that we were literally writing to people were being written with a stamp that was unlocked on top of the desk, right? So it was just like, here's a stamp, here's a check, here's a vendor getting paid. There was nothing. There was no technology on the back end or the front end or anywhere else. And so we really challenged ourselves on like, okay, let's go in and figure out where we're using technology with purpose and intention and adding value. So it's not necessarily something that's just a layer for the sake of layer, but having something that has real value that comes from it. And one of the big places we're like, we're flying blind on customers. We don't know anything about them. We have this great digital brand and we know nothing. And so we started putting in that piping, and that ended up being really key to us later on for figuring out how to scale and personalize. And we were fortunate enough that that was our background because both my husband and I started in the technology business. So it was a lot easier for us to really push and say, why don't we use a tool from over there here just because at least then we can get the data.
yeah, that's brilliant, and I don't wanna gloss over the fact that you had, I know you say your husband and I have been, in tech, but you have had quite a career, not just in tech, but also at General Mills, I see. You've got McKinsey& and Company, and, some other places. Were there any things, learnings, I should say, that you picked up along the way, or advice that you found yourself kind of utilizing in your new kind of career path?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was really lucky to constantly be surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs when, frankly, I don't think I was naturally ever one myself. And so, because of that, I was always one of those people that I felt like was put in leadership positions or took over companies, what have you, because I was just the responsible one that was really good at getting things across the line. And then all of a sudden, I had all these entrepreneurs who were pushing me and saying, like, take the risk, do something and try. And the fact that none of us actually know what was going on. I'm like, no, no, no. In my mind, if you're running a company, you have to be the smartest person in the world, period. And there's no other way of doing it. And then once when they really push me, I'm like, do you think anybody knows what they're doing? Everything is chaos. And I'm like, oh, that's a first realization for you. Like, yeah, it's all about just outrunning the chaos to create something in that wake. And that was a really good push and reframing for me that allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable with let's jump in and just try. And then it doesn't have to be perfect. And there's so much beauty in that and letting it go. And that took a long time, especially coming out of McKinsey, where I feel like we pride ourselves on making sure everything is very polished, very perfect, very accurate. What happens when the reality is the value is when it's not.
Yeah, done is better than perfect, right?
Mhm.
I mean, how is he gonna learn unless you just try it,
Yeah,
right? You don't have
exactly.
any data unless you do it, right? And I love that. Like, I always feel like entrepreneurs are the best at, like, just pushing each other to, like, closer and closer to the edge. And eventually you're like over the cliff and you never know what's there. Like, you either fall, 100 feet, or you fall, or there's another ledge, right?
Yeah.
The only way you find out is if you jump.
Or if it's a
Um,
trampoline and you're like, oh, we're off to
well,
the
yeah.
races.
Yeah, and there's so many parallels, like, I would say independent restaurants anywhere, right, is so entrepreneurial. Like, a lot of folks, have dreamed to have their own business, or got thrown into it some way, or stumbled upon it and just went for it. They didn't know everything, and they kind of, surround themselves with, the right people, or at least people to support them, in one way or another, and then they learn, and they adjust, and they figure out how to get to the next step, and that's another beautiful thing I would say about this industry as well. Just a lot of entrepreneurs trying to figure stuff out, and coming together to help each other figure it out, right?
Yeah, it's the best part, and I think that's what's so great even with entrepreneurs in restaurants in particular, is that there's so much more warmth and care of expecting the chaos in a way that sometimes we often overlook, and there's so much joy around that of like, "Oh, we're all in it together. Like, isn't this great?"
Exactly. Like, all future and current restaurant entrepreneurs out there, you are not alone.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, I love that. I think one of the things that, people often say, also on these, shows when I do the speed round is, um, almost this, like, hope with during COVID, where it did force a lot of people to kind of take a step back and just get together and kind of just talk, whether it's just talking about common challenges, or just, just sharing, and finding comfort in solace in each other. Is that, once things got a little bit, back to whatever the new normal is, those times spent together are becoming fewer and fewer. And so, we're seeing a lot of people just wanting to proactively get that communication back. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to speed round. Um, okay, so now you're in New York now. You've relocated. You finally made that milestone goal happen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now you're preparing for your new opening. What's it like going to another city? Where things are different. Your clientele's somewhat different. I mean, you did all the data and you do have similarities, of course. But how are you thinking about preparing and building the teams and what kind of leadership you need, et cetera?
Yeah, I think something that was really big for us was we actually showed up in New York in April of last year. And we spent the first 4 months, to the chagrin of some of the folks we worked with, doing nothing but listening and dining and showing up at bars and talking to servers and talking to bartenders and literally just asking questions and looking around. And even when we finally did start looking at spaces, we would go to a space probably 3 or 4 different times. We'd go once, yes, with the broker, but then we'd go back on a Sunday night. We'd go back on a Tuesday right at 4. We'd go back at 10 o'clock on a Monday just to see, like, what does this look like? Because it was super important for us to accept that we know nothing and we shouldn't assume we know anything. We should really fight really hard to listen to everybody and then put the onus on us to filter through. And so, what does that look like to balance that consumption with the filtering for the insight to then turn that into action? And so, being able to have all those conversations, we ended up finding our space and finding our home really in December. So that's a long time to just be in the market and existing and looking around and seeing, like, what do people love? Where do people light up when they talk about going to a restaurant? What's the moment of hospitality that people talk about and they say, "Oh my gosh, let me tell you about this amazing restaurant I went to and why." And all of those little micro moments are so important. It's such gold for us to be able to mine that then by the time we actually made the decision of this is our space, this is where we're going, now we're going to be working with people, we had all of this information that we felt really comfortable with. And that was a really big element for us of how we've always built is it's relationship first. Because again, this push on our business is human. So if we want to power it, it has to be based off of the power of the relationships and the people, not only the customers who are coming in, but also the hospitality leaders in the industry who have been here for so long and using them to help us say, like, okay, how do we try on different things for size? Does it fit? Does it not? What do we want to keep? What do we not? And that was a really important conversation and element of like realizing that by the time 2025 came and we were like, okay, we're going to actually pick up a hammer and start demolishing things, we already had all of these relationships and all of this input to be able to pull something from because coachability is the number one thing that really mattered.
Yeah. Yeah, and you remind me of a recent conversation I had with Minnie Chowan, where she was talking about Nashville and just, having that level of respect of and the community, to understand that you're joining them. And so that reminded me of that. I think that's great, and I think that's very smart, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're
But,
excited.
you know, I'm not my opinion isn't the one that matters. When you open, I think others will also agree.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very excited.
Yeah. And I want to take a little sidestep here to talk about some of the other things that you do for the community, for women in leadership. And can you talk a little bit about, outside of the restaurant, what, you're involved with and how you got into those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been someone who's really passionate about what does mentorship look like, especially for someone who's always been I've always been really fixated on this concept of like, what does a personal board of directors mean? And recognizing that no one person is going to have all the information or all the wisdom or all the wisdom. It's just seasons and times and place and being able to kind of create that. And so for me, it's been about how do I create relationships with folks who are ahead of me, to the side of me, and also younger folks that can inspire me. So those that are ahead of me, I initially joined the International Women's Forum. And I remember walking into one of my first meetings, and like 6 of the women that I got paired with were all in their like late 60s or early 70s. And these were women who were trailblazers in their own industry. And most of them were the first in whatever they were doing. And hearing their stories and saying, I was the first partner, I was the first person that my firm hired who was a woman, I was the first this, and understanding the amount of discipline that came to get them where they were and the standard that they set was really inspirational for me. And so that was kind of like my first round of like the folks that were inspiring me from above, and then turning around and saying, okay, how are you bringing people to the side of you who are your friends, that are your peers, that maybe you guys are in the same bucket, but they've experienced something a little bit different that you can learn from? How are you asking? And then the folks that are below you. And even that big element for us has always been this kind of apprenticeship model. So something that's really key to what we do at the Golden Steer is we have a lot of individuals and a lot of phenomenal folks, especially women leaders, who have started where maybe they didn't even finish their GED, but today they're now directors, senior managers, folks that are running the whole gambit. And they're phenomenal at what they do because they are so good at learning and taking feedback. And it's always been about designing professional plans for them. How do we take somebody who started as a busser and turn them into the best operations leader that we have? What does it mean to take somebody who started as a hostess and then turn them into the director of all things marketing? What does it mean to create specific paths? And so, whether that's been through International Women's Forum or some of the work that we've done with just starting to create these networks of both women and male leaders who have an opportunity to study leadership, because it's not something that's always very natural in the hospitality industry. It's something we kind of all fall into because we're constantly receiving and interacting with the public. But how often do we take a step back and say, what does leadership mean? How does it look for every individual? And how do we study it and treat it as its own craft?
Yeah, absolutely. And how do I acquire those skills to be a leader myself one of these days, right? And I think that self reflection, just taking a moment, is something that I'm seeing more common amongst leaders because they go so much, right? And then one day they're like, I'm either gonna burn out or something's not right, or they have a moment, whatever that may be, that gives them a pause. And so that's so important. Um, but yeah. Well, and I have to say, certainly, we became fast friends. I'm going to say that out loud. I mean, you're incredible, and I recently also saw you speaking at the chef conference here in New York, and you were just like, spewing knowledge left and right, and people's mouths were just like dropping to the ground. How do you keep yourself motivated and like inspired? Obviously you got high energy, you're smart, type A probably, and balance is probably not a word. It's like harmony. Your life is in harmony. How do you find yourself like picking your priorities and keeping yourself inspired?
Yeah, consumption's definitely the biggest thing for me on like what content am I intellectually consuming? Who am I listening to? What am I learning? The same way that we create professional development programs for our leaders and we have individuals who are going through multiple. I mean, we have a group of leaders actually at our company that are doing 2-year leadership programs with folks that are teaching them the kind of the best practices across how do we think about sure personality tests, but hiring and all these things. I spend all this effort and energy on the team of setting them up with education and then turning around and making sure that I'm also doing that for myself because I can't bring my team along. I can't find these resources if I'm not also equally fixated with how do I be 1% better every day, which is one of our core values we have for our team. We've got 4 core values at Golden Steer, and one of them is 1% better every day, trying to improve personally and professionally. And so for me, I end up creating my own kind of personal development and professional development plan at the top of every year. And I'm going through and I'm identifying like where are my gaps? I'm getting feedback from my team. I'm getting observations from folks. I'm taking a moment to say like, oh, actually, I'm really bad at negotiating this year. I need to get better at it. What does that mean? It means education. It means observation. It means practice. So I'm setting goals for myself. I'm attending webinars. I'm going in, I'm reading books about it. And then I'm bringing it back to the team and saying, it's also not about just us teaching each other leadership. It's about hearing from other individuals. So it's who do we find that's in AI, that's an expert that we're bringing in? Who do we find maybe that's in sports that's really good at motivating teams when it comes to physical work, bringing in and having them teach? And so constantly getting that consumption. What am I consuming? What am I reading? What am I listening to? Who am I talking to? And where is that inspiration coming from? And it has to be constantly as fire hose because I think the best place that I always kind of really distilled it down to is a professor who taught me that creativity, by definition, is about making novel and practical applications from disparate sources. And so, if it is disparate sources, what are you consuming outside of your immediate sphere? What are you seeing beyond your own aperture to be able to widen it so that there's enough to be able to get that inspiration? And it can't just come from you, it has to come from everyone and everything else that you're consuming.
Great. I don't even have anything to say after that. I love it. I'm like super motivated right now. It's when you go so hard and so fast and so long. Like sometimes it's easier to just be like, all right, let me just take a minute. And absolutely, I 100% believe people should take a minute.
Yeah.
I remind myself, like, take a minute. My flight was delayed 3 times yesterday coming home from Chicago. And I was like, okay, take a minute. My Wi Fi didn't work on my flight. And instead of like, normally I'd be like, oh my God, my Wi Fi is not working. And I'm like, you know what? Okay. back in the day when I used to travel for business all the time, there was no such thing as Wi-Fi on the plane. So let me just take a minute and, read my magazine or watch a movie. Anyway, there is that time that people must take for themselves and figure out what works for them. And then that balance of like, okay, yeah, there are things that motivate one, and whatever that is, fold that into your life and figure out how to share that, because it's absolutely invaluable. I mean, the energy and the yearn for knowledge, it's infectious, right? And if you're looking for those types of leaders and you want to motivate them to say, absolutely, I believe this is important. I'll believe this is important for you, and I'll support you as you go on your learning journey. That's, I think, something really important from a leadership standpoint as well. Instead of, I'll say some corporate situations where it's more like, this is your job and you do great. Keep doing this because that's your job, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So
And the evidence has to be there, right? It's like you can say that you really care about something, but then how do you follow up and do you do so timely and unprompted, right? Does somebody have to chase you down for the fact that like we have these professional development classes, we also have additional training, and we have stipends towards people. We're constantly putting people through training, but do you make it easy for them? Because if you say you care about it, it should be easy.
yeah, yeah. And we talk a lot at Culinary Agents about, like, from day one, this is our 13th year or 13-year-old startup. We're not really
Congratulations.
a startup anymore. I know we had this conversation. Thank you. And from day one, which, 13 years ago, this industry was, in a different place, we focused on, okay, this is a profession. And it's one of the most amazing places and the only places where it welcomes everyone, and you don't have to be here forever. However, if you would like to be here forever, there are different career paths. There's examples of how people have done it. There are a lot of career changers, of people who have come to this industry and have brought immense knowledge and experience with them, and have often changed the way things are done and what the norm is. And that just adds more color and diversity and just excitement and creativity to the industry. So right now is so exciting, because we're seeing talent from all walks. You get people who are excited and trying to get into the industry, whether it's, their first career or their career changer. And then you have folks who are in the industry that have this new sense of pride of this ongoing professionalism, and development of this industry. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still hard. There's a lot of challenges in the industry, and it's not perfect, but it definitely is one that continues to evolve, for the better. And the more that people continue to take perspectives like yourself and bringing in outside expertise to better how people serve other people, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're educating yourself and the team on themselves so that they can do their jobs better, right?
Yeah.
Or differently, and the way that matches your culture and what you're trying to do. So congratulations. That is not easy.
Thank you. And to your point, it's
Yeah.
like one of the best times I think to be in the industry is truly today.
Yes. Yes, it is. On that note, we are going to quick fire.
Cool. Love it.
What advice would you tell your younger self?
No one knows what they're doing, truly. I will never forget that, and I wish I knew that younger.
What's your advice for someone struggling in the industry?
Don't suffer in silence. I feel like, especially in the industry, we can be really bad about keep it to yourself, pull it together, have that professional face, put on the theater, whatever it is, but then we don't give ourselves a chance to open up and get help when we need it. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just don't suffer in silence, especially if you want somebody to help you, if you want any help at all, you have to know first that there's something wrong.
What's your advice for fellow hospitality leaders?
I think that one is, for me, really appreciating that feedback is one of those things you can get from anyone at any time. Even if you don't agree with necessarily something that's being said, it still tells you how the other person thinks. So if you're not asking for feedback from every single person on the team, you're missing an opportunity to understand your team, who then isn't necessarily going to understand the customer as well, because that is a circle that feeds it, right? People make people happy.
People make people happy. Absolutely. On that note, Amanda, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your expertise and your career path. We're so excited for this fall.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. We can't wait to open, and it's going to be an exciting run.
Remember, success looks different for everyone in hospitality. No two paths are the same. If you have a leader or a topic you want to hear about, email media@culinaryaagents.com. Hospitality on the Rise is brought to you by Culinary Agents, connecting top talent with employers since 2012. Whether you're hiring or looking for your next opportunity, join us at culinaryaagents.com. For more inspiration, subscribe to Hospitality on the Rise and visit hospitalitycareerpaths.com, a free platform by Culinary Agents. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And if you love this episode, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration.